Welcome to EntrePods, the most cutting-edge podcast for entrepreneurs and investors. We answer the hottest question today. So now what? We are radically civilized with a focus on durable solutions that make the most positive impacts in your business, financial, personal, and community life. The world right now belongs to entrepreneurs. Today, we'll show you through our expert conversations that matter, the limitless opportunities you have right now to live the life of your dreams. The best version of you and your business starts now. Welcome to EntrePods.
Hello, EntrePods. We're back again for another amazing episode. And today we're speaking to someone who lives in the wonderful paradise of Costa Rica because they've been able to escape it all. And I am absolutely so jealous. So the person we have today is a serial entrepreneur since they were 13 years old. And since that time, he's developed over 10 businesses in media, action sports, advertising. In 2010, he actually made the move to Costa Rica and founded a development organization that works with communities. And since that time, he's been helping entrepreneurs all around the world get centered, get to their North Star, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and just get back on track so that they're meeting what I always talk about, their number one goal, which of course is your North Star. So we want to welcome to the show Perry Gladstone with the Moonshot Collective. And Perry, I am so glad to have you here today.
Thanks, Jennifer. It really is an honor. I'm pretty excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so you're living in paradise. Before the show, we talked a little bit about, I know someone who's lived in Costa twice. The second time they had a marriage fall apart, and you said, well, it's very difficult here. We actually say 2 to 3 years couples. There's a 2 to 3 year period and they'll break up because they come to paradise, but it's very challenging. And so I thought that was fascinating. So even though that has nothing to do with entrepreneurs, still it's about challenge though, meeting new challenges and how, and sometimes the dream that you had as an entrepreneur, just like in a marriage, because it is this little company that you're making with someone else, you go, now I've finally done it. I've started my company. And amazingly enough, sometimes things don't go the way you think that they do. And then you got to break up or change something else. And it can be very devastating, but you can also learn incredible pivots, more about yourself, or find strength to get through those things. So let's talk a little bit about that. How have you helped people? Have you ever helped a couple through that? Or have you helped an entrepreneur going through something similar, the Costa Rica 2-year breakup, or I don't know, what do y'all call that? Do you have a name for it?
We jokingly call it the Costa Rica divorce.
Oh, okay.
And you couldn't be more right about the way that you explain this. It is about expectations, and whether we're talking about starting a company or a marriage or any other kind of agreement where the intention is you're going to create something new, something better, something that's greater than just the sum of its parts. What happens is that we bring in all the expectations that we carry with us. And the difficulty is it's not always easy to see them. We don't always realize that we carry these expectations with us. And whether they're societal or familial or tribal, they're there. And sometimes they're below the surface. Sometimes they're things that we've accepted as reality without actually doing the work of digging in and picking it apart and truly deciding, is this what I believe in? So my dad used to say, expectations are the only thing that will kill you. And he was right. So whether we're talking about any of these constructs, the marriage or the business or whatever it is, the real issue is always going to be, are you aware of your expectations? Have you really done the hard work of breaking those things apart to see what they truly are? So where the rubber meets the road is, have you done the work? So that when you do create goals, when you do think forward to the kinds of accomplishments you want to achieve, are they even realistic? And I'm not talking about necessarily financial, I'm talking about what's behind the behind. You know what I mean?
Oh, I absolutely know what you mean. I've worked and done consulting with so many companies and business owners. And I've sat down and I've realized that there is a complete disconnect for what is on their balance sheet that they want to get and what they actually need to do and want in their lives. And that's why they can't really move forward, because they've done all this financial work. We're going to do this. And if we sell this many widgets, we'll get this. And this is our profit margin for this and blah, 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 blah. And that's great. But how is that going to work out with your other needs too? They never think about the fact that, well, I have a knee issue and I have a torn, meniscus. And so I need to be able to go in the doctor so many times a week. And I have 2 little kids and I need to do this and I need to do that. Right. And so they never figure that in with their planning or their day or their anything. And the plans never meet up, or their expectations are what has been foisted on them through entrepreneurial peer pressure. So they're building this out because other people told them that this is what you're supposed to want and do and hit. And if you don't do that, you're not a real success. And they're miserable because they're literally living someone else's life.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly what we're talking about with this idea of expectations. Are they even yours?
Mm-hmm.
You asked me earlier if I've done that work with couples, if I've done that work with businesses and business owners, and the answer is yes to all of it. My job is to help guide people through the process of understanding what they are here in this world to do. We have a saying at the Moonshot Collective, which is that fulfillment comes from pursuing your greatest potential. And what we mean by that is that if you are aligned with what you are here to do in the world, the purpose that you truly have, then you can create amazing things. Like making money and being successful and all of these more material, types of measures of success, there's nothing wrong with them and I fully support it, but it's not the true measure. The true measure is, are you achieving your greatest potential? And to measure that, you have to know what that looks like. You have to know where that comes from. And so that's why we work very closely with people on a personal level to break those constructs down and truly understand them so that you can go out and have the kind of success that you always wanted. Like I said, we try to teach people that you have to measure the whole thing. You have to measure what it is that you're capable of and why you're capable of it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. What's funny is this is actually what I do. We're direct, I guess, competitors, but I don't feel that we're competing because you have another way of saying it and I'm loving it. So I'm like, I'm going to incorporate that, because I usually, what I'll do is in the way I state it to people, but I kind of like some of your wording. So I might end up stealing it a little bit and cross-referring it because somebody might thrive with the way I do things and then, or they may not. And if they're not, it could be just me. Sometimes you just have to gel personality wise. So for anybody thinking, man, y'all are doing the same thing. Well, yeah, but that's okay because I get people and I refer them to Jonathan or Liam with EHQ, or maybe I'll refer them to Perry now because I'm getting to meet you guys at the Moonshot Collective, and it's all good. This sort of kind of competition thing and that really has no place in the new world because people will be aligned to who they need to be aligned to. And if you have an open heart for helping people, it's okay. So
100% agree. 100% agree. It's never about anything other than, is this the right place for me now? Or is this the right place for you? And, we can see this. There's so many great teachings, that are offered to us as examples of this. And it is clear, whichever place that you look for guidance, that the right teacher comes when you are ready. And if you are not ready, if you're not ready to learn the lesson, then you don't make room for the teacher. So, the mentor's there. It's when you're ready to do the work, the right person shows up. And if that's you, or if that's me, or if that's someone else, all that matters is that you're actually doing the work.
That is so weird. Today is the weirdest day because I just taped another episode with a guy who only works with real estate investors. And he basically said the same thing because I was trying to teach somebody about mindset because I'm like, wow, you're really in a negative space all the time. And the world is against me and only lucky people make it. And you either had money or were born into money or you had some sort of privilege or whatever. And I'm like, well, and he, and he also said we hear this all the time, but if you believe that, then it's true. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're just telling yourself all the time, then you've just made it true. What Henry Ford said, said that. And I can't think, I can't think of what the quote is exactly, but you know what I mean? If that's what
Yeah,
you
I do.
believe, then that's true. You've just made it
Belief,
true.
belief is the most foundational piece of all of this.
Yes.
And this is why I was saying earlier that, this thing about expectations is rooted in belief. And for better or worse, what happens to most of us is that we are indoctrinated by our family, by our friends, by our community. We're introduced to beliefs, and you can't challenge those until you develop a certain level of maturity.
Mhm.
And for a lot of people, they go through life where they accept things that have been given to them without doing the work of challenging it. I never judge anybody for what they believe in, but I insist that they have done the work to decide if it's a belief for themselves, as opposed to something they've just taken on. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yes.
And
Yes.
but yeah, belief really is that foundational piece. So that's what we do at the Moonshot Collective, which we endearingly call TMC,
Mhm.
is we create a place where it's safe to do that work.
Mhm.
That my co-founder Ravi and I are there as guides to help people do that fundamental work first, so that they know that what they believe in is something they can count on, that they know that the expectations they have are rooted in you can call it faith too, right? But
Right.
faith in something that they've done the work to know that this represents who they want to be in the world. So it's a pretty deep dive, and it is pretty personal. But the beauty of it is, once you've established that base, you're pretty much unstoppable, because now like I said earlier, that your fulfillment comes from pursuing your greatest potential. You're not going from one goal to the next. You're not going from one accomplishment to the next and being let down, and just in this endless loop of, it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You're
I call
happy
it the
for a
hamster
day.
wheel. You're just
Perfect. Yeah,
running. I just feel like some
exactly.
people, they're not really going anywhere that they really want to go. They're just
Yeah.
running in the hamster wheel. And
Sure, you get
it's,
your first this or
yeah.
that. I mean, I made my first $1 million, and I thought that was it.
Mhm.
I married my wife, and I thought, perfect, my life is perfect now. No, the work just starts now, right? You're at the next level of it. So we're so set on making sure that you understand these concepts. The North Star is yet another one. And
Mhm.
when we talk about North Star, what we're talking about is orientation.
Mhm.
So not only do you need to do that fundamental work to understand your beliefs and why you believe them the way you do, so that you can have expectations that are realistic. But also, we want to have something to look forward to. And looking forward to the next goal, looking forward to that $1 million sale, or looking forward to whatever that thing is, isn't sufficient. Because as you were just saying, and we were just discussing, it will always let you down, because you get there and you're just ready for the next thing. So the idea of a North Star is to have this thing that you can always orient to. No matter how many steps you take towards it, it's still in front of you. And so this is yet another concept that we want to make sure that we really truly unpack, so that everyone has it there. So you can always course correct. You can always align yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very important to do. I mean, and I was talking to somebody else about that with just doing consulting work. Like when you actually
Hmm.
start to dig in with an owner. So this is the work that what Perry is talking about is, if you're like, I'm going to make serious changes, Perry's a foundational person, meaning that's one of the first things you have to do is go through what he's talking about. Because once you get to somebody like me who's actually digging into your processes, your QuickBooks and your things like that, and saying, okay, we're going to write out some emails, and I'm going to work with you on branding. Maybe I'll bring in one of my branding experts, and then we're going to set your funnels and do all the stuff like that, like the actual work. Well, if what I'm doing and what I'm writing and that voice is not calling back to that North Star, it can be a number one goal or that mission, but it all needs to be aligned. Because if you're a small business owner, or even a solopreneur, and it doesn't matter if you have hundreds of employees, the thing is, you built this for a reason. And this reason was also to align you. So at one point, you're going to step away from that organization and maybe create other organizations. But if you don't have the concept of the North Star, it is very hard for me to create that for the mission and vision of your company, because those
Absolutely.
staff
Yeah.
and everybody else need that same concept. So what Perry would do at the foundational level, or sometimes what I, whatever, at that level, by getting you aligned personally, then you can take that concept and go, okay, wow, how is this business I created going to help me with this? That's a very healthy space. So now we need to create this for the business. Is it going to be very aligned with what I'm doing, an integral part, because I'm a business owner who wants to work and this is what I'm going to do? Or am I just going to create this and set its own goal because I know this will be a really great path that's going to help me with my path? Some people have serial businesses like Perry. So those things are really important. And the most successful people in the world are very aligned to this, whether they know it or not. Some people are in a healthy place or not. I mean, we know that I'm not talking about multi-billionaires. I actually don't think they're healthy in some ways because they're so, at one point it gets to be out of balance. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It's out of balance. I'm talking about truly successful people who have good, loving marriages and are good parents and are into their community and love their community and the earth. There's a lot of people like that, and we may not hear about them as much, but they're there. So I'm talking about those people.
Yeah, I agree. Let me share this with you, Jennifer, and the people who are listening to this, because I think you're right on point here. I have the privilege to work with very powerful people, and that is my career. But what I have learned in doing that work is that everybody at this fundamental level has the same issues, and it's rooted in the fact that most people, and especially the more successful you get, the more isolated you become. And that they don't have, all of us don't have a safe place to ask for help. And what I learned, I started out as a young entrepreneur myself, and as a young person, where you're constantly surrounded by people who are older than you and have already got experience you don't have, there's lots of mentorship available. It's not always on offer, but it's around. And if you have, the wherewithal to ask for help, you generally can find it. But as we get older, and especially as we get more successful, we naturally stop asking for help. And we put ourselves in this situation, as I said earlier, where we start to become more and more isolated. And in my experience, especially working with people who've been highly, highly successful, they're the most isolated of all, because everything around them is supporting this idea that they already have the answer. Or for example, they might not feel comfortable trying out something that might not work, or they don't want to be wrong, or they don't want to look bad. There's all sorts of reasons for it. And so what we've done with the Moonshot Collective is not only have we created a place to do that foundational work that we've been talking about, but we've created an environment where it is safe for you to ask for help. And when we look at the people who are the most successful, and there's a gap, right? The people like on top, and then the next level down, there's a significant gap. And that gap is having that safe place, having other people that trust you and you trust them, that can call you out on your stuff, so that you really can achieve your greatest potential. So that if you're the smartest person in the room, that doesn't work.
No.
You need to be around other people who are going to have experience that you don't have, who are willing to call you out when they see that you're making a mistake. So TMC, the Moonshot Collective, is both a place for that foundational work and an organization, a peer mentorship network, where you have a place that's constantly safe, where you will always have access to that. So those are the sort of two pillars of what we do and the opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. I'm a firm believer in that. In fact, I run peer advisory groups, and it's the exact same thing. You need to have, we have an NDA, but our retention is like yours, 3 to 7 years.
Yeah,
but it's a different person. It's a different personality. We're getting different sorts of personalities, so it's all good. But it is, it's unbelievable. Like, why would somebody stay for years? I know you've got incredible retention in your program, and it's because there's no real other place to go, they feel, for them. Because especially for you, like, you work with really, big sports people and high media people. That is all about perception and media and what social media thinks. And you can't admit, everybody wants to see that hard luck story when you're doing great, but then they're just waiting for the fall. Oh, you're not really doing as well. Oh, and it's viciousness. It's like blood in the water. Social media is ridiculous.
This is the story,
Yeah.
right? Like people put you on a pedestal and then they chop you down. This has been going on for thousands of years.
Yeah. But it's good for people at that level to still be able to recenter themselves, because if you get too much into a bubble, you get weird. And you also become susceptible to evil, and maybe, you don't even have to be religious, moral evil. You get susceptible to people who see you in the bubble. I think and I've said this several times, Tina Fey, she's a comedian, and she used to be on Saturday Night Live, but she wrote a book and she talked about victims of abuse, like from their coaches and stuff in school and kids. And now that she had kids, she was worried about that. And she said, but I came to the realization that being a good family unit was the one thing that could protect my kid, because the more I became educated, she goes, I realized it's not the beauty that draws a predator's eye, it's the damage. And that is absolutely true. Because if you are in this bubble and you start to lose that center that you get by being with other people, by having other people saying, that's a little bit kooky, Elon, or whatever, or whoever it is, and they never say anything about it, then you just can get crazier and crazier. And all you're getting are quote unquote fans, which are really bots, just this echo chamber. You're doing,
I agree. That's the point I was making earlier, that, people
you're right.
They become yes people around you. And you end up attracting that. And I think this is why the types of communities that we build, you and I, are so essential, because it's one thing to do the work, but are you in an environment that will truly support you? And are you around other people who share this like-mindedness, who have gone and done the work at the fundamental level to understand that the beliefs they have really work for them? And then we can share and learn from each other and support each other. And it's not about achievement, at what level of achievement that you've accomplished, but it's about what type of commitment you've made to this as an ongoing process.
And the what's in it for me. I mean, and if you have to get out, some people are like, there are different levels of people. People are like, oh, that sounds just so selfish. But the thing is, that's what you're here for. That's your journey, is what is in it for me. Come
on. If you don't put your mask on first, you can't help somebody else, right?
That's right.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
When the masks come down from the ceiling, you put yours on first so that you are able to help other people. It's part of the equation.
Yeah, you have to be healthy.
Sacrifice yourself, and so that you're not
you'll
there
pass
the
out.
next day.
The kids are screaming, where's my mask?
That doesn't work. This is why when we talk about things like money, we don't have a problem with it. It's absolutely okay to be successful. In fact, we want you to be, and I'll do everything in my power to help you do that, if at the same time you're doing the work so that it's sustainable for you, so that you can truly help your community and the other people you care about.
Yeah, and you can know what to do with the money. There's mindsets that just revolve around how people think about money. Because you can just give people millions and millions of dollars, they win it, and then they lose it within a couple of years. And it's not because they're stupid. It's not. No. It's not because they are ridiculous people or, whatever. It's because they didn't have the right mindset, because it was never taught to, and it was never part of what they were supposed to do. Growing wealth, just our banking system alone is crazy with that.
Yeah. I love that you gave that example, Jennifer, because we're talking about the same idea. If that base isn't there, if you haven't developed the maturity, the ability, the understanding of how to manage money, then you're going to lose it. So, it's not, people talk a lot about things like abundance mentality and stuff like that, and that's great, but what happens when it arrives?
Right.
Then what? And if you haven't done the work, if you're not prepared, if you're not able to, let's go back to that same analogy, put the mask on and be stable, then this is not sustainable.
Right. And you can be doing fine. I know that I mean, some of my own limiting beliefs are based in fear. You know,
Hmm.
I talk about having been homeless as a teenager, going to college, you know,
Hmm.
while doing jobs, while not having a place to live. And sometimes I was lucky to be in shelter. Sometimes I was lucky just to have a bush, you know, that was
Wow.
away from other people. And it was
Yeah.
horrible. And that stays with me. And it's taken years and
Yeah.
years to be brave and to get out of
Hmm.
things, because there are some things that you're taught if you're middle class that are different from if you're lower class, you know,
Sure.
things that we hear from other, you know, generations. Put your nose to the grindstone. You know, if you're not exhausted by the end of the day, you didn't really work. If pay off everything in cash, never get any credit, never use
Right.
credit, it's all bad. And then you come to a point, you know, many of us have done that and we're like, okay, I'm ready to expand. I need to get a line of credit for my business. And they're like, okay. And you're like, yeah, but my credit rating's 800 and something. Yeah, but you don't really have credit. So we're only going to give you about $2,000. How's that going to expand my business?
Yeah. Exactly. These isms,
Yeah.
right? All of these like, you
Mhm.
know, these expressions and these ways.
Mhm.
I'm a musician, and I hear from some of my musician friends the same kind of limiting beliefs. Like, you have to suffer for your art. You
Yeah.
know, look, the greatest musicians had to have a heroin habit or die at 27, or
Or
and it,
did you
you
pay
know,
your dues?
right, exactly. But it's not true. The truth is that there are tools, right? Like,
Mhm.
you talk about a line of credit. This is a tool. There's
Mhm.
credit cards. There's all different ways. And if you learn, and I see these, we're talking about the same thing in so many different ways. If you do the work to learn how to use the tools, how they work best, if you do the work to develop your own ability to be stable, to be mature, to make good decisions, then you can take advantage of all of these things. But to go along with this, some saying from somebody else's grandma, from whatever, right, is back to, as you said, these are limiting beliefs. These are beliefs, as we started talking about in the first place, that may not be true to you, but you might have adopted without ever doing the work. So all of this stuff is so important,
Yeah,
right?
or they may be true for you. Maybe you are just like that grandma, and that's who
Exactly.
you are. See, you know, people get also overwhelmed by the amount of options just in money and financing and
Hmm.
baking. Well, there's so much I can do. Well, that's
Hmm.
where this comes in, because if you have your base, or as Perry and the Moonshot Collective call it, your North Star, then you can figure out which of these options actually align with you and your
Yeah.
personality and what you can handle. There are certain types of investment strategies that would make certain personalities just suck their thumb in the fetal position and go, I really can't handle this. I'm so nervous about this. This isn't fun for me, even if it works
Yeah.
out for them. Well, why live like that? There's always something else you can do that's going to be a little bit better. So there's a way you can challenge yourself and expand yourself without trying to break yourself. And
Yep.
sometimes you need help to figure out what that is, because we all just want to do better. We all want to be abundant. We all want to be great entrepreneurs, but you have to really be centered with yourself first. So I just cannot stress how important this type of work is to really hitting to the next level to be an entrepreneur. And it's going to
Absolutely.
help you. It's going to help you feel better about what you're doing. It's going to help you in your relationships. It's going to help you in so much. And it's also going to help you pare down your boundaries into
Hmm.
what really aligns with you. And
These are,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to, because you said something that's just so important. There are really two key things. One is your boundaries. It's the perfect word for it. And to be able to determine what healthy boundaries are, you have to do that foundational, that fundamental work, right? And then the other
Mhm.
piece is support. Do you have the kind of support you need? Do you have a safe place to ask for help? Are you surrounding yourself with other people who can share experience with you, who are committed to your success as much as they are theirs, in a healthy, positive way? I know that you work in these ways, as do I. And if you have these elements, you have everything you need. The only piece that's missing is the effort to go through it.
Yeah, it's amazing what a little bit of support can get you through to the next level, whether
Everything.
you're just starting out or you're like, I've been there, I've done that, and now I'm bitter. whatever it is, really, it's getting some help. We don't have to go it alone. We really aren't meant to be hermits. I know there's a couple of great saints,
No.
I'm Orthodox, I mean, I just watched a special of Saint Joseph of the Hephaestus. Okay, so basically it's Saint Joseph the hermit is basically his life story. So I'm watching it and I'm thinking, wow, he had visions, he was tortured by demons, he lived as a hermit, he had this incredible saintly life, and he brought people in. But I couldn't help but think that, well, and he was canonized after the 1950s. He didn't die till 1950. So this is a saint, a modern time saint, basically. Modern, And I couldn't help but think that perhaps he had some mental illness, but at least that gave him an outlet for it, where he didn't go and harm other people when he had this. And he really tried to figure out what was God's purpose for him. What was his purpose? Yeah. And his purpose was to live in contemplation and to live literally in a hut in the side of a mountain that he built with the ruins of rocks. I mean, when I'm talking hermit, I'm talking that they had like one outfit that was sewn together with them. They caught their own food. And it was like crazy, his story, that somebody could be doing it in the century. Right. But there was an outlet even for somebody like that, to where he had a glorious life and he made friends and people looked up for him. And a lot of people thought he was insane, said, you're a whack job. You're, he had that too. Right. But if somebody like that can find their place and die and go, I've lived a life that I wanted to live, even though he was tortured and all the other stuff that happened, then definitely everybody else can. But guess what? He had help. He had elders and other people in a community and a lot of stuff that he found along the way. Even a hermit living in a mountain wasn't completely alone. Because
he came out of the cave, right? Like this is, and I think we're all on this journey in our own personal way. And I think that often people, these kinds of stories are so powerful, but they're also, they can have a negative effect. It's like that story of the rugged individual, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to do everything yourself. And like, this story is not, it's a construct that has elements of truth, but it isn't true. It's a continuum, it's a cycle. And there's a part of it where you need to retreat, where you do need to be on your own, where you do need to reflect and envision and pray, or whatever it is that, works for you to allow yourself to go through that process. But afterwards, you need to come out and share it. There's a reason why there's so many people in the world. And that's because we learn from each other, and we need the reflection. For me, just to know who I am is only half of the experience. But for me to see my impact on you is the other half.
Yeah. And conversations like we're here with EntrePods, conversations that matter are so important. If you don't think they're still important in 2021, look at Clubhouse. Look at the exponential growth of Clubhouse. You're talking, you can't even record it. There's no way to text anybody or do anything else. They're just talking to people because people have craved it so much, having unfiltered conversations where they can really try to say it. Not that they don't have the canceling and everything else going on there, but they also have a lot of very raw, open conversations, because we need that. Oral history predates, written history, and we still have entire cultures that oral history matters, including our own, and so it's important.
The beautiful things about that is that it's about relationship, right?
Yep.
To have an oral history means to pass it on, means to actually share it, to say it out loud. And so again, we come back to this idea about relationship. And because I think you're spot on here, right? What Clubhouse did was, in a way, burst through an open door, because people, as you say, desperately needed a place to have this kind of experience, to get back to a place where you can be in the moment to hear it. Right. And in other words, be in relationship.
With no video. They wanted just to talk.
Right.
They wanted to, like, literally, when you're a kid and you have to say, your mom is like, I'm a mom. Just tell me what you're thinking. What is upsetting you so much? and they won't look at me. Okay, don't look at me. Put your hands over your eyes and just tell mommy what it is. And I would put their hands over their little eyes, or just tell mommy what's going on. And then it finally came out. Sometimes you can't even, it's so true. Your voice is shaking and you can't even look at them. You're literally hiding because you're so afraid of what you're going to say. And
I need to try that with my 3-year-old.
It's a good one. That actually works sometimes. Don't look
try
at me.
that today.
Put it, you can say it. It's a safe space. And you also, sometimes when you hold your hands, you say, this is the safest place you can possibly be.
Yeah.
And that helps them to do that. Because sometimes it's just so hard. They have all those hormones and emotions, all the feels.
Yeah. All the feels. It out. I think that lasts forever. I mean, there's no question, right? We're overwhelmed. I mean, I know that my 3-year-old is going through this incredible transformation and he doesn't know what to do with it. But I think, once again, you've brought up these, you keep bringing up these incredible ways to describe the things we're talking about. And safe space is that, right? This is what I don't want to speak for you, but I think you and I are very similar in this way. We create a place for people that is safe. Right. And whether we're coaching
and safe
them,
space has a negative connotation now, but it, like try to get away from that political thing of that and think about it of a real, safe space where you're not worried they're going to steal your ideas and launch the company idea you have, or, you say something, they'll use it against you. I mean, people at our high performance and a high thing, they do have to really worry about those things. And so that's why it's insanely important for anybody who's listening right now. If you're at that space and you're like, I could never, you're the person who probably needs this the most. Anyway, we're getting to the end. Okay. So, we've been talking with Perry Gladstone. We've kind of went over on this episode because we're both very much alike. So I could probably talk to Perry forever. And you can find Perry at the Moonshot Collective. And there you can find a lot more about joining a community, getting into a space where you can really open up, be real, get to your North Star, and make insane breakthroughs in your life and in your business. Perry, I want to thank you so much for being on today. It was so great. I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Yeah, me too. This was really fun. And I'm so glad to get to know you better.
Yeah, me too. Okay, guys. Well, you know that you can find us at EntrePods on any of your listening platforms. You're listening to us right now. And please don't forget to like, comment, share, and give us that 5-star rating. It really helps us connect and get on great people like Perry. And don't forget, if you're a member, you can ask Perry questions yourself. You can get on our membership, get in our Slack, and we can start conversations and introduce you to guests and a lot of really fun stuff. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you next time on EntrePods. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening, and please go give us a 5-star rating on your preferred listening platform if you enjoyed the show. This helps us reach more listeners like you and keep booking amazing guests. If you'd like to join our growing EntrePods community, want our social media links to like or share, or inquire about one-on-one strategy calls with our host Jennifer, please visit EntrePods.com. See you next time, and here's to you and your best life imaginable.